why do we believe that carbohydrates are necessary? It happens because in the 1960s, scientists developed a technique of measuring glycogen in muscles. And they didn't have much other technology, but they figured out that your high power performance deteriorated when glycogen levels were depleted. They also figured out that glycogen was made of glucose, carbohydrates are made of glucose. Therefore, it was obvious that if we just eat more carbohydrates, we have more glycogen, our high power, our anaerobic performance, our power performance, our strength performance is going to be better. And that was the paradigm which basically resulted from this one test, the muscle biopsy for glycogen levels. And nobody ever questioned whether carbohydrates actually were needed to maintain glycogen levels because it seemed so obvious. The fact is, it's not plain as day. The single piece of evidence on which this whole notion that you need to have carbohydrates for high-level athletic performance hinges on glycogen stores. So in 2016, Jeff Volek was again associated with a study where they published a paper on ultramarathon runners. And basically what they did, they had some of the ultramarathon runners were ketogenic and they were well keto-adapted. They'd been doing it for months. And they had high carbohydrate adapted athletes who were used to being high carbohydrate. And then they put them on a treadmill, they made them run a marathon. And before they got on the treadmill, they did a muscle biopsy and they measured their glycogen levels. And before they started, they actually found that the ketogenic athletes had exactly the same level of glycogen in their muscles as did the low carbohydrate athletes in the rested state. This is what you would predict. So the conventional theory is that after running a marathon, that the high carb athletes would have higher glycogen levels because they would be consuming carbohydrates to do the race, so on and so forth. What they actually found is that after the marathon, there was no difference in glycogen levels. And then after nutrient replenishment, in which the low carb athletes were given fat shakes and the high carb athletes were given carb shakes, 2 hours after recovery, there was again no difference in glycogen levels. It conclusively proves with biopsy level data, you don't get any better experimental data than this, that glycogen stores are maintained on ketogenic diets in long-term keto-adapted athletes.